Hello, sunshine. Welcome to Be Visible with Veronica, the podcast where bold conversations and soul-aligned strategy help you awaken your most powerful self. I'm your host, Veronica Bond. Get ready to stop dimming your light, own your magic, and finally be so visible you can't be ignored. Let's get visible. Hello, sunshine. Welcome to the Be Visible with Veronica podcast. I'm Veronica Bond, your host, and today we have an incredible nonprofit, OCJ Kids. Tammie Webb is going to be sharing her vision, her mission for at-risk kids, and how they've been able to not only help the community locally, but how it has become a global movement for the process in which they've been able to move forward. But first, a word from our sponsor. A heartfelt thank you to our premier sponsor, Green Living Magazine, Arizona's leading conscious lifestyle publication. Each issue is packed with new ideas on how to use nature's resources for sustainable living tips, inspiring stories, and statewide eco events. Subscribe today and get 12 print issues and digital access at greenlivingmag.com/store. So important for me that every fourth episode we are focusing on a nonprofit that reaches and focuses on children, animals, and women. Yes. And you are all about the kids, Miss Tammie.
Yes, we are.
Now, you and I met a few years ago at an eWomen Network event, and we were working on raising funds in our local chapter to support a nonprofit that year, and it was an $8,000 grant, and you applied.
I did.
And you know what I love about this story is the threshold for application has to be between $25,000 and $1 million.
Correct.
And you were just under that $1 million mark. And now you're over that $1 million mark.
Yes.
But that means more than money that's in the bank account. It's really about how many more at-risk children you've been able to reach.
Correct. Yes.
And that is how we met. And in fact, our donation went to help you start a dignity room, which I know you want to talk about.
Yes.
But first, let's really lean into the story of your nonprofit, OCJ Kids, and how it is changing the lives for at-risk children. And how long have you been doing that, Tammie?
So my husband and I were youth pastors, ended up being 23 years before we stepped away. But during that time, we encountered a lot of kids in the area where our church was that were very at risk. A lot of transient families, a lot of single-parent households, parents not home. And we wanted to create a place where those kids could be safe. And so we started an after-school program. Just took an empty classroom at our church and turned it into a teen center so that the kids had a place to come and hang out. And that ended up turning into 8 after-school programs at one point, partnering with other churches across the valley. And then during that time, we also encountered a group of kids at a local high school who were allowed to leave campus at lunchtime, which I don't think is really happening a whole lot anymore. But they were going off to the alleys and doing all the things that we don't want our kids doing when they're 15 and 16. And so we had a church that allowed us to use their space during lunch right next door to the high school. And the kids would come over and hang out with us at lunchtime. But we were able to serve them nachos, let them play video games. But in doing that, developed relationship. And out of relationship comes permission. And so then we were able to speak into their lives and speak into the issues they were dealing with. So it was a very, very impactful period of our life and our ministry together. And then in 2005, we were at church one day, and a lady walked in with a whole lot of children that were not hers. And we found out that these kids were in foster care, but they did not live with a foster family. They lived in a group home. We call them modern-day orphanages. 8 to 10 kids in a house, staff that rotates through to take care of those kids. So you don't have that sense of family that you would have with a foster family. And so we just began asking, how could we as a church begin to impact those kids? And it started off with a Christmas party and a back-to-school celebration. And before we knew it, we were impacting so many group homes that we felt like we couldn't continue to be a youth pastor and run OCJ Kids, working with these kids, and do both with excellence. So in January of 2010, we stepped away from youth ministry to do this full time.
Wow, I bet that was a big leap of faith.
Huge, huge leap of faith.
So one of the things we talk about on this podcast is creating visibility around impact.
Yes.
And the power of yes and following promptings. Somebody said God crumbs, divine calling.
Yes.
Whatever is in our heart, what's that spark? And I can hear in your story the passion of how that, like the Casey train, right? The Casey Jr. going up the tracks, kind of slow moving, and then the whistles blowing, and then the momentum. And it's because you and Gary just kept saying yes.
Correct.
Yes to the children, yes to the families, yes to the opportunity to serve. Yeah. And then it just kept coming around you. Now, I know that there's quite a few charities that focus nationwide on children and at-risk kids, but you and Gary have been able to do something really special with OCJ and take it to a whole nother level of excellence. And I love that you shared that word, because having a commitment to yourself to be all in excellence, wow, what a beautiful statement. And I want our listeners and our viewers to hear that for a minute and just like, give me your hands. I just want them to ground into that. I wanted to show up from a place of excellence.
Yeah. And I think it goes even deeper than the place of excellence, though. It goes to our purpose in life and who we're created to be and why. Gary and I both came from backgrounds that have stories and history, which a lot of people do. But out of those moments and out of that changes the way you see the world. And it can change you for bad. It can change you for evil, or it can change you to be willing to fight the fight to make change in other people. And so when we look at these kids, and it's been this way since we met. I was 13 when I met Gary. And it's been this way since we met. When we see these kids, we don't see the pain and the trauma. We see who they were created to be.
Their potential.
And we have to follow through with that. I can't look at a child, I can't look into their eyes and see God in their eyes and turn around and walk away.
Wow.
So we were willing to take that risk. We were willing to say, we'll walk away from it all. I mean, walking away from a youth pastor salary doesn't mean you walk away from a whole lot, but we were willing to just say, okay, you've put this in us. You've put this on our heart, and you've brought these kids here. So how do we do what you've called us to do?
Oh,
and that meant taking that huge step.
It did.
But it's so amazing because all the way through this journey, God has been so faithful. Every time we hit a challenge, He's already ready for it. He knows it's there. He knows it's coming, and He's already prepared the way for it to work. And it's just been this constant growth of new experiences, new people, new encounters, new provision. Every time something comes up.
I love that you have both stepped into your power, and you represent OCJ Kids in such a beautiful way that you've been able to foster a lovely board, community excitement that now reaches beyond Arizona. And I want to talk about that. But one of the things that was really impactful for me was when I walked into your building and I saw shelves and shelves of very purposeful, practical, beautiful boxes filled with things that kids that come into your world very quickly because of a situation where you get called in a crisis situation, right, where a community members reaching out to you saying, we have this child we just picked up, or there's been so many things I learned about those tours that I've done at OCJ Kids, and where the funds go and how they're helping, and your gala you put on every year, and then how you've been able to bring the the NAU in to create programs not only to help the children that are in foster care that are in need, but also the parents and the families that are fostering these children.
Right.
And then your After 18 program. And one of the reasons, I'm just going to have to show everybody, look what I have on. I have my power shoes on because this is what you remind me of. It's stepping into your power and being so bold that you're like, yes, I'm putting on my power shoes every day because I'm going to work for God. I'm going to work for these kids, and I want to see them as their most brilliant self, not in their trial. Because I think when you look at a child with eyes of, yes, you can have compassion, but when you see them in sadness, and then they're seeing you reflect what they think they need to be. Mm-hmm. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, and I not for a second do we ignore the pain.
Right.
You can't. You have to walk this journey with them right where they are. But in that pain, continuing to speak into them who they are. Sometimes people have to tell us what they see when they see us because we lose sight of it. And if I can look at these kids and just love them, it's going to help them to go through this journey. I always tell my volunteers when they come into my warehouse and we do our tours that I know these kids have been through a lot and they're still going through a lot. But I also know that there's going to be a point when God is going to begin to heal all that pain and all that trauma that they've gone through. And when that happens, there has to be those moments throughout this journey where somebody gave them a toothbrush, somebody hugged them, somebody said, I see you, I'm here with you. Those are those moments that are going to carry them through until this healing starts. And every one of my volunteers, every one of my donors gets to be those moments. So it's not just me, it's not just Gary, it's an entire community of people who looks at these kids and says, you're part of us, and we're going to walk this journey with you.
So share with the listeners and viewers, Tammie, what you have going on this year where we might be able to support you, or an event that's coming up, or and then I want to talk about a heartfelt transition or transformation story that you'd like to share as well.
Okay. So right now we are, it's not immediate, but it's coming up.
Okay.
The building that we're in, I always tell people I feel like we're koi fish because every time we get into a property, we outgrow it. And we've definitely outgrown this space.
This is some good news.
It always is. And so we have our lease on our current building doesn't end until August of 2027, which sounds a long way off, but it's really not. And just in the last 60 days, literally in the last 60 days, God has opened up a door where we are going to be able to step into a facility in partnership with a church. And we are probably going to quadruple the space we have. It's absolutely amazing what's happening. So, and we've had partners that have come along and said, okay, you're going to be getting this space. We can help you with this. We can do this for you. We can partner with you here. And all of a sudden these wheels are going. And so it's going to be huge. It's going to be amazing. It's going to give us the ability to not only impact the kids in foster care that we're working with, but to impact the community around this building. Create more intense, deeper partnerships with the Department of Child Safety, where their caseworkers that are doing supervised visitation have a beautiful place to come and do visits, where a caseworker or a group home staff who's just overwhelmed because this is a hard job, have a place where they can come sit and just, we call it soaking. Sit in the music, sit in the quiet, sit in the presence, and just regroup. We've wanted to do that for years, and we don't have the space, but we're going to have the space in about a year and a half. So
that is, and I mean, here we are already, almost halfway through the year, and it's incredible how fast time flies. So
absolutely,
your preparation plan to get you to that space is just going to happen like that.
It is. It's going crazy right now.
You know, one of the stories of impact that I remember you sharing. Well, there was so many, but the two that I'm thinking about. The first one that hit me the most was when a child protective service agent picks up a child from a home. They have to change their clothes.
Right.
And that was often the police officer or the child protective service agent taking off putting them in a large T-shirt or something that they might have had in the car. And you are all about creating dignity for children.
Absolutely.
And one of your missions that I saw in this room, the scaffolding full of these beautiful boxes filled with, by age, by whether they were infant 0 to 3 or they were 17, 18-year-olds or extra large men's, all the way, like you have something for every child in that room, so that you had shared that caseworkers will often, knowing they're going into a situation, stop by OCJ Kids to make sure their trunk has share what's in the bag.
So,
I'm going, it brought me to tears.
So one of the things that happens frequently when kids are being removed and placed into foster care is, depending on the situation they're pulled from, there can be a need for the caseworkers to have to put them in other clothes. Sometimes it's that the clothes they have are just they're not good at all. They don't fit, they're torn, they're smelly, they're all those things. If they get pulled out of those really bad, I call them the hoarder houses, those type of things, the caseworkers were having to put oversized T-shirts onto the kids because that's what they had available. Everything that we do at OCJ Kids is focused on creating dignity and lessening trauma in this journey. And so when we found that out, we're like, oh, we can fix this. We can solve this problem. So we started what we call a Go Kit, and it's a brand new pair of pajamas with diaper or underpants and wipes, and they get put into a kit. So it goes from newborn babies, and we've got teens now, so they go from newborn babies all the way up to size 3X in teens. And the caseworkers can put those into their car, and no matter who they're picking up, they've got brand new clean pajamas to put on those kids before they remove them. And we'd found out as well when that happened that the caseworkers were using their own money to buy food for these babies. We personally, within our family, have a situation where one of our nieces was adopted when she was 2. And when they found her, she was eating out of a bag of flour because that was the only thing in the house. And so obviously as a caseworker, your heart is, you've got compassion. That's why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
And so they were using their own money to buy food for those babies. And so with those pajamas, we provide either a $250 Visa card or $250 in fast food gift cards with that set, so that they can purchase food for those babies when they pick them up. It's an amazing little tiny thing, but it can completely change your world. Just to have somebody create some dignity, it makes you understand that you're human. You're not forgotten. You're not pushed away. You're not in the side where nobody can see you. We see you, and we see who you are, and we know that you are worthy of being loved and being cared for. And something as simple as a brand new pair of pajamas can tell them that. So that was our pajama project that we do. And those pajamas are distributed statewide. Last week, I delivered to Sierra Vista. I delivered to Flagstaff the day before that. Last month, I delivered to Payson and Sholo and Winslow and
when
Douglas.
You say you deliver, Tammie, are you driving these
I put them in my
your
van or my car,
wherever?
and I take them.
Wow.
Yes. And part of the reason I do that is because I don't want to just provide resources. I want to stand with these caseworkers. I want to stand with the people that are caring for these kids.
Be in community.
I do. Absolutely. Relationship is valuable. And as a caseworker, I always tell my people, like, what kind of a job do you get up and go to every morning where you know no matter what you do, somebody's going to hate you? You know, and they get tired.
Yeah,
and if we can have people that come alongside them and just say, hey, we're here. You know, we are with you. You are not doing this by yourself.
Let's talk about a transformation story that after all these years at OCJ Kids, is there one particular situation that stands out that you'd like to share?
Man.
I know there must be a million of them, but
Yeah.
something that's on your heart that was real transformative for you. It felt like the triumph, right? Like, this is why we walked away from pastorship into this space. This made it worth it.
Yeah, there have been so many of those moments. I think for me, it's a lot of little moments. We hosted our adulting summit in the spring, and during that event, and I've told you this before, I really believe that God orchestrates and times things, and He places who He needs where He needs them at the right time. And when we did our adulting summit, we had one of our volunteers ask if she could gather clothing and bring and set up a little clothing rack so these kids could choose clothes for job interviews and for work. And we absolutely were like, go for it, do it. And so she was set up in the vendor room with all of our other vendors. And silly me, we have these little cards that when the kids go talk to the vendor will stamp their card.
Okay.
And if they've talked to the appropriate number of vendors, then they get like a gift card at the end or whatever.
Okay.
So I purchased these little daubers that you would use to play bingo to stamp the cards.
Okay.
6 of the daubers exploded. Exploded in the hands of the people using them. So one of our kids that was part of our event, he had come in his white shirt and his pants, and he was all ready for his mock interviews. And when the marker exploded, it exploded all over his shirt, all over his hands. And so our staff grabbed him, ran in, helped him get cleaned up. But when he came back out, they said, well, let's go by the clothing area and see what we can find there. So they went over there, and there was a suit, a khaki-colored pants and jacket that absolutely fit this child perfectly. Oh. He was tall and skinny, so the chances of finding something to fit him was slim to none. It fit him perfectly.
Wow.
And when he put it on, his entire countenance changed. He just became this different person. So much so that when we did our panel discussions at lunchtime at the end of the event, we had him step in and MC that for us.
What?
It was that drastic of a change. He went on to join our Apprentice to Permanency STAR program so he could go through classes to receive OSHA certification and training. And, it's just those little things. It's that one moment. And I told the girls that set that clothing thing up, if it was for no other person,
just to get him that suit,
this is why you were here today, because you just changed the entire direction of this young man's life.
Oh my gosh!
And
I have got bumps.
Yeah. So it's those moments, and those moments happen all the time. And these kids struggle. These kids have been through a lot. So sometimes when they hit those high moments and we celebrate with them, we're going to have to go back in 2 weeks and we're going to have to cry with them.
I just want to circle back to the adulting program, because you know how many times my adult children have said, they didn't teach us this in high school. Mm-hmm. And you're here teaching it to these kids to give them a step up. Yeah. I want to talk about the partnership you had with the university, the NAU, Northern Arizona. Yeah. Let's talk about what that was like, because when I learned about that program, coming and visiting your facility, that blew my mind.
So we have a partnership with Northern Arizona University's Occupational Therapy School, and their students who are working on their doctoral work come in and spend a year with us, and they interact with these kids, and they interact with the occupational side of what these kids go through in life. And from that, they have been able to create resources for us. And we, at this point, have 9 different magazines that they've created that deal with things like self-regulation, self-esteem, mental health, parenting a newborn. Mm-hmm. We have teen moms in foster care that the parents that were raising them are missing some of those skills. Otherwise, these kids probably wouldn't be in foster care. And so who these kids have learned from probably haven't given them the best information and the best skills. But we've created this book that teaches them those basic things that a caseworker can work with them, a volunteer can work with them, a foster parent can work with them to help them learn how to parent that baby and break that cycle that put them in foster care.
Break that chain so it doesn't repeat.
Yes. It's an incredible resource. One of the books or one of the magazines is designed for elementary children. And sometimes when kids go through trauma, their brain actually stops developing. It almost just hits this wall where the building blocks can't grow anymore. And if we can find ways to engage them in specific activities, it can actually encourage those building blocks to grow again. So one of those resources we have is designed specifically for people who are working with these kids that deal with delays because of trauma, and opens up those opportunities for those kids to continue growing and learning. So it's been an invaluable, amazing, amazing partnership we've had with them.
Oh my gosh, I love that. When I learned about that program, I thought, why isn't this being shared to other states and other resources and other areas? And this seems like it's working so well. And when children age out at 18, you also had a beautiful program in place. And I know that it's evolved possibly, but that was so cool what you were doing with the cell phones. Tell us how you're still reaching and connecting with the children who have aged out of the foster system.
So we have a couple of different phases of interaction with those kids. Arizona has the way their foster care aging out process is set up now. There are 3 phases of transition that the kids can go through, and each phase gives them a little bit more autonomy and independence, but it gives people the opportunity to work with them and help prepare them to actually step into independent living. So during those phases, we provide them with a suitcase when they age out that has all kinds of resources in it, including a life skills book created by NAU. And then we give them a bus pass if they're in the valley. We give them empty suitcases across the country. When kids were aging out of care, they were getting black trash bags years ago.
Oh, wow.
We worked really hard to change that here. So they get suitcases. But then they also have the opportunity to come in and get a cell phone from us. They get unlimited talk, text, and data for 6 months. But in order to keep those minutes on, they have to call in and talk to my mentors.
Wow.
So in those conversations, we're finding out, how's your job? How's your housing? How's that community you're with? And if we need to help plug in resources, we can do that. It gets them over that initial figuring out what life is like when you're an adult, so that they can succeed and thrive.
Every child after 18, regardless of their situation, should have that.
Absolutely.
I know you have adult children. I do too. And I just think that's just a life skills program. Every parent should hand the box to the kid that has some of these things in it. I know that there are listeners and viewers here, Tammie, wanting to understand how they can support OCJ Kids and get in touch with you or Gary or your organization. Can you share with them how to do that?
Absolutely. We are located in North Phoenix, but we work all across the state of Arizona and in other states. But you can find us on Facebook at OCJ Kids AZ. Our website is ocjkids.org. Our phone number is 602-439-2171. And we encourage businesses to bring in your team from your office. Churches, bring in your women's groups, your men's groups, your teenagers. We have a lot in that warehouse, and we have a lot of volunteer opportunities and a lot of opportunity for our community to wrap around these kids and bring change to their world.
And I know you guys have done such a beautiful job in creating that visibility for OCJ Kids, a beautiful nonprofit here in Arizona. We're so pleased to have you on this podcast. I'm so grateful to be able to honor you, and I'm inspired by you and Gary. And I love that you continue to just show up and say yes and follow God's promptings for your life, because you're making a ripple effect that will last for legacies, for eons, for decades. And we'll put all that information in the show notes. So if people didn't have a chance to write it down, and we don't want them hitting the brakes going, wait, what was that phone number? We want them to be able to get that. So we'll put that in the show notes, Tammie. And thank you. All of our guests come on to the Be Visible with Veronica podcast. And, I'm all about spreading a little sunshine, just like you do. So I have this beautiful Hello Sunshine box, and it has some really yummy things in it. So I hope that every time that you open it, you are reminded of the impact you're making in the world and how you're just radiating the planet with your impact and your mission.
Thank you.
I'm so proud to have highlighted you on today's podcast.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here. I love being able to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Tammie. And if this has triggered your heart and you want to learn more and you can't wait for next week's episode, we will be talking to Dory Morales with Green Living Magazine, who is also this podcast's premier sponsor, and the conversation will continue. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to Be Visible with Veronica. If today's episode sparked something in you, share it, tag me, and pass it on. Your presence has power, and the world is better when you let it be seen. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and keep showing up as the unstoppable force you were born to be. I'll see you next time.